Alright, sorry that I didn't upload for a little bit. Somebody had a hate problem, and as you know, I have a soft spot for people with hate problems, so I had to help them out. In this tutorial series, we're going to be creating a platformer game that's actually, let me show you, a lot like... it just has to load really quick. Also, I recommend you use the Scratch website, and then when running your project, after a little bit, you're going to want to switch to Turbo Warp. Alright, the Minecraft or something project. I've created here a simple platforming script, and this might look insane and difficult, but it's actually quite easy. We have 3 different places here. You can die, you can jump around, you can collide with walls, and it's just a basic platformer. You could definitely make like a platformer with this. The main complex part, the complexities mainly all lie in the place check block. It's an easy to make platforming script, and you could probably get to a high position with this. You could definitely get to a good platformer using this base. Alright, let's go back to our other project. I'll just click on the CM side for it, and this is pretty much what we have here. So really, you just want this script. It's not a very hard to make script. Just a when green flag clicked forever. So we're going to want a new block. We're going to call this X move. Run without screen refresh. And then X move. Alright, so first of all, why aren't we doing this with the Y first? Well, because I found it easier to, when I was building the project, that you could easier, it was more easy to make the project if you were to use this. Now I am going to go into more complex stuff by using an X and Y variable and also using a position block, but that's going to be in the final tutorial. And actually, I'm not even going to do that. You guys are going to have to watch another tutorial, because if you don't do it at the beginning of the thing, then it's never going to work. Okay, I'll create a variable, call it xvel, and make it for this sprite only. We're not going to have almost any code in our second sprite, which will be our ground. We don't need our ground sprite yet, but I'm just going to click paint, and I'll draw a nice rectangle, and I'll move it right here. I'll go y -50, and then make our player go to y 25. Actually 100 at the beginning of the game, but it's fine to have it at y 25. Put it at whatever you'd like. Alright, so as you can see, we have the xvel. It's currently 0. We are going to show the variable. For right now, we're going to grab that, set xvel to xvel. What is this going to help us do? Not a lot. But if we do it to set xvel to xvel times 0.9, it will be xvel but smaller. Alright, and then we're also just going to grab a change x by xvel. Now we're going to have to change xvel. Well, that's quite simple. All we need to do is this. And then we're going to grab an if key is press block. We'll make this the right arrow. You can make it WASD if you want. So now, like as you can see, we can move around. If I were to add in another cube or rectangle up there, though, we don't collide with it. That's an issue. Alright. So, how do we add collisions? we're going to say if, then if else, then an if else and the if else. I'm kidding. It's not that complex. We're just going to say if touching, which right now is called sprite2, then we are going to just really say if xfill is greater than 0, then a repeat until. We can duplicate this, but we're not going to yet. Not grab this and then do that. 1 minute. Alright, now that we have this, we can just duplicate this. We're going to, of course, set xfill to 0, set xfill to 0, and set xfill to 0. We don't want it at all moving. But we do want it to change our x by -1. And we are going to change our x by 1. Now, how does that make sense? It doesn't. So now we collide with it. We can't go past it. We're going to want to go to x 0, y 100, just so I can show you that we collide with it. Now we have an issue that's like this. If we go into it, we can still phase through it. Why is that? Well, that's because if our xfill is greater than 0, we're changing it by -1 and repeating until it's not touching sprite2. So, what's the issue? We can collide with it like that all nicely, but our x velocity is going down, but it phases through it at first. What we can do here is divided by abs of, and we're going to say xfel divided by xfel, change x by, replace that with that, and then as you can see, it's really low and it doesn't slow down. That's the only issue. Divided by blank, well, that's literally nothing. So if I were to divide it by 1, then that's almost nothing as well. If I were to divide it by xfill, though, when it hit 0, then it would stop. But it wouldn't stop until it completely hit 0, and I'm not setting our xfill to 0. So let's just get Control-Z, 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 Control-Z. And, well, this is the issue right here. We never want to set our xfill to 0 because we're sensing if it's greater than 0. Now, if I test it, we don't go through. The whole problem was literally in our main script that whole time. That what I used right there was not a good method. And now we're going to add wall jumping, but that's not yet. I'm just going to make a new block and call it ymove. And this is just short for move on the y-axis. And then we're going to do this. And now we're not going to call place check ever. And we're not going to call a test do death ever. Because that's not going to be in our video. Or in this video at all, yeah. This is not going to be in our series. JK, it will be. And now you are going to have to create the second variable that almost everyone knows how to make for the sprite only. And now, because we're going to be getting into more complex stuff, we're just going to call this player and this one level. Alright, let's stop our script so that we don't get lag. First of all, we are going to always, this is required, change it by -1. And then we're going to want to grab our rabbit. And now, as you can see, it's always changing. But is that good? Yeah, we want it to be always changing. So now we get into the more complex part. I'm going to be going quite fast because I'm going to want to get this over with quite quickly. Then, yeah. Then I can go over what it does. So, this isn't working very well. Why is that? It's because I didn't add in this. It's also changing its Y-val by that. If I were to add in this, we would fall, we can move around, and we can fall off. Now, we're not going to fix that ever. We can collide. We definitely fell. And this is where we get into the complex part. Well, here, I'll do something really quick, and I'll see. And you guys are probably going to see if you like this feature or not. If you do, then don't do what I'm about to do. Then don't do what I'm going to do after I complete the jumping. Okay, so we're going to set jumping to 0 if we're touching the level. Then we're going to set jumping to 1, but we're not going to have anything. First of all, we're going to want to add in this. And then we're going to add in another if, and then we're going to just say greater than. It is currently 0. It's greater than 0 if jumping not greater than 0. No, not that. We can get rid of that greater than 0, and we can just say is equal to 0. Now what are we going to do here? We're just going to add a key space is pressed. Or we can also have, we're going to add in the extra movement keys because we're going to want them all for the player's movement. Now, if we were to add in a settings and then controls, then we're going to have a few different if statements, but it will work out in the end. We are not going to add that into this simple platformer. Maybe in another video, but probably in this series, I'm going to do something like that. So, now, if we add in this, we can do it a lot of different ways. So watch, if I fall, I can jump back up. I can't double jump. If I fall, I can jump back up though. So, do you guys like that feature? Then don't do what I'm gonna do here. Being able to jump in the air, like when you're falling. If you guys like that feature, then don't do what I'm gonna be doing. Alright, we're going to say if not touching level, set in air to 0 if we're touching the level. But we're also going to want to add something, and then we're going to say if not touching level. Now this took me a little bit to get when I did it, when I was doing it. So the player's always in the air, right? Because he's always going to be touching the level. Well, he's always not going to be directly touching the level. Also, since you want to know the reason why everyone stopped using these cool looking sprites for platformers? Well, here's the main thing. Our whiskers could lift us up. Our head could lift us up. Our tail could lift us up. All of our accessories could lift us up. So this was not a good thing, and we just started using squares. Our cat's fine though for right now. I'm going to duplicate his costume. I'm going to call this player, and then I'm going to delete this. So now our player sprite is blank, and now he's a cube. Because this is the easiest form of making a platformer. Yep, we don't want anything but just a basic cube. Well, we can probably add something to make this cube look cooler, but not yet. Also, as you can see, our Y velocity doesn't mean anything. Also, making this cube the right size for our platformer is also important. I want to go with a small cube though, because I like the look of everything being bigger to him than it actually is for us. This is where wall jumping will come in handy. Now, you might be asking me, if we're going to be making a platforming script, then why not test and see if our player should be able to go through ceilings? Well, if our player can go through ceilings, this is a nice feature in some games, but it's not a good feature in others. Also, everything's just a boring purple. I'm probably going to spice it up a little bit, but just by doing delete, and then I'm going to make the ceiling black like a line there. Now, is this too small for our player to sense it? And is this in a position that our player can't even, like, touch it? Yep. But now if we hit the green flag, we'll just fall down like that. And our player, yes, he can still sense it. We're going to have to fix this issue. But that is going to be an issue. Then there is going to be another issue. This is where the main issue comes in. As you can see, I already haven't added a set Y bell to 0 if it's touching the level. That's because if Y vel is greater than 0, then else. So now we're going to stop our scripts. That's because of the issue that we could get where we have lag. And we don't like lag, right? Okay. So this works, right? We collide with the ceiling, but we can stick to it. Now this is a cool feature, and I don't care if you guys add it into your platformers. It's a nice feature to have. Like, it's how you get into some places. It's like a secret feature you can unlock. That's cool, but it's not what I'm feeling. You don't have to do this part either. If you have a character that can jump, like, oh, I forgot to continue the thing. If you have a thing where you can do like this in your platformer, where you can like do a secret like trick move, jump, and then you can like land on that, go right, and then jump, and then you're on top of it, then I really don't care. It's your platformer. I actually think you could make a nice game. I would play your game if you had a feature that's like this, or that you could do like something like that. Yeah, I would play that game. It's a nice feature. Now, what are you? No, I don't want you. Where can we set in air to 0 in? We're going to set in air to 0 here. And this feature is actually quite insane. It makes it possible to go under the map if you time it correctly. Yeah, you can literally do stuff like that, which is really cool. Like, just to be honest with you, that's a really cool feature. Like, you can save yourself from falling. It's an extremely cool feature. And if you do stuff like that. Oh, I forgot. I'm supposed to be setting that to 0 if I'm not touching the level. Oh, no, I'm supposed to set it to 1. And if we add that back on, we're always going to be at 1. If touching level, set our in air to 0. We're setting it in a lot of places. If I were to put it there, though, it's never 1. So, what's the point in even having this in air variable? Well, what it would do is it would completely change everything and make it so that you could possibly not, it's possible for you to not just do this, where you can actually, like, go under the map and jump like that and then stick to it. That's just basic platforming stuff. But the in-air variable, well, here. Let's actually save the project by doing Control S, and now the project's saved. Let's take a look at Minecraft or something. I just made it look like Minecraft in its graphics, and let's check on what we did to fix that. So, if touching ground, well, this doesn't have any sensing for what's above us here. This was the issue. I set our Y velocity to 0 when we were touching this, so I could never get the correct sensing on something above us. But that's fine because this isn't a very good platforming script, and I'm just going to look at it for a minute. If not touching ground, then set in there to 1. Yep, that's what I had. If touching ground, then I had, yep, that. Let's just go back to our folder. In fact, let's actually go back. Let's go open up Scratch again. And then we can go to our real project that we're going to be doing the tutorial on. And we're going to just be doing this. We're going to grab this project, and then we're going to look it over. So, if we're touching the level, it has to load up the thing, and it has to load all the sprites and stuff. Then, we're going to just set in air to 1. What? In air to... Oh, no, that's if not touching level. Yep, that's nice and good. We did that. And set in air to 0. Now, if you look at this, our in air variable says 0. And look it. We can't... We have to touch the ground before we can jump. Now, we're always not touching our level. So, what's the point in even adding that? Well, if we say after this we want to set it to this, then we'll forever be setting it to that, right? And it actually is a quite cool feature where you can just jump back into the ground. And fixing that was different in our other one because we didn't have the code different. And if I were to take out this, put it in here, and then taking out this, it causes lag. If I were to put that back in, no. I need to put it back in there. Okay, so now if I click the green flag, our in air is still really good. And our code's almost exactly the same. If touching, we can, so really it's just going to always say this. What if we only did it when this was true? Well, it completely ruins the fact that when we're falling we can jump. Which is why I am actually going to create an entire new block that's just jumping. We can delete this block. We can delete this block. Whoa, Control Z, that, we want that. Alright, so, jump. That's pretty much just falling in collisions. Jump. Our jump block is literally going to live up to its name. It's just going to be jumping. There's nothing saying that we can ever jump ever again, though. We are going to just add in a wait until block. And now nothing else can happen. Really, we need an if statement. And then another if statement. Really, it can only be one. If touching level, then not only set in air to 0, but also set jumping to 0. But, of course, code isn't running, so we're never touching the level either. That's why we need to stop this script and then put it in there. And now it works. See, just putting it in a new block helped. But we can still do that, because it doesn't sense that. That's why we need to go back to this. It's just really saying the only problem is this. If not touching level, duplicate. Well, we can still jump, but really, guys, did you think that I would have done this? Well, really, I'm just going to add an and. Duplicate this, put that there, and we can just duplicate this. Why do we need another jumping? No, we don't. We need an in air. Now, sorry for the long tutorial, but I'm going to be building the entire platformer in this one tutorial. And then if I replace that with that, watch this. Well, for one, we can never jump because in fact, this is weird. If I take this out, we can't jump still. If I put that back in, if I take this out, we can't jump. We can't jump. We can't jump at all. And now we can. So, what's wrong with our scripts? Well, for one, maybe using 2 if statements, and for 2, we're setting in air to 1, people. Did you really think that we could have done it any other way than that? Well, now we fixed one problem. Now to fix the other one. we're already repeating until we're not touching it. It's just we're always changing our y-val so that we're setting our y-val to 0, really. That's why we don't want to do that. Our y-val is 14. We want to set it to -1. That means it doesn't care. It doesn't care about our y-val. It's always going to allow us to stick to it. It doesn't care about our y-val. And we're repeating until we're not touching it. We're going to need to repeat more like just 10 completely. And now we're getting lag because we repeated 10 and now we're just repeating until we're just doing something. And this was a terrible idea. Look at what happened to our poor player. He just teleported. So watch. We're going to sort of bounce along it. And this is why we just don't do that. We're going to just really, this is actually what we're going to do. Well, that doesn't work at all because it's just doing that. So if we control Z all of these back until the way it was, then the way it was pretty simple. We were just saying if our y velocity was greater than 0, which it is, then we're just going to say, okay, until we're not touching this level, then we're going to make ourselves not touch this level, which will probably only run a few times. It's just so little that we can barely see it, and it's so fast that we can barely see it. Oops, I fell into the void. Well, if it's too little, then it's not going to be enough, right? But the fact that we can stick to it is a whole nother matter that could be put into a whole nother video just explaining how to fix it. Because I have not run into this problem for a very long time. Alright. What's our issue? If I were to say don't do anything, but just change our y by that, and then our y velocity stays the same. Okay. If we're repeating until we're not touching it, then how are we ever going to stay up here? Well, the thing is, we're running it every 30th of a second, and we're running all of this code pretty much at once. Then what's happening that's wrong? Well, since our y velocity is 0, we're still in the air if we hold our up arrow, because we're always touching the platform. This is where we have to go back into our jump. We're just going to grab this. Oh, this is what we want. If we go into our jump thing, it's a nice and easy to change script. If our y velocity is greater than 0, and well, you would think that we would do it in here, and yeah, we could. If our y velocity was greater than 0, which we can change around, if 0 is greater than y velocity, that lags us out a lot. Okay, so it doesn't lag our PC, it just lags the game. And this doesn't do a thing. Are in air, if 0 is bigger than y velocity, this is why we need to set it to -1. And this is why we need to set it to negative. This is why we need to set it to -1. Now if you see this, this works just fine. Might cause a little lag, but set y velocity to blank, that means it has no value. So our y velocity is absolutely nothing. So if we set it to blank here, then we have no value. Then it doesn't know what to do, which is why we're going to have to set it to 0 and 0. Taking that out, we immediately are bounced back down, like it says nope, meaning our whole problem lied right here. We just didn't code it right. Now if I were to say this, we can still stick to it, meaning I was correct to say this. And our platformer is completely coming along. We can move around a lot. Our guy can collide sideways. He can collide upwards. He can collide downwards. He can jump. He can... This is a nice platformer. It's now, some people might just call it done, and I'm fine with that. But before you go, please add one more thing. Alright. Since this is going to be on the xmov, then set xvel and yvel to 2 and then 5 and -5, and then we're also going to duplicate this. Well, no, we only need one of those. We need 2 of these, and then it's going to be 5, and then we're going to grab an if-else statement, and then we're going to put it inside of an if. We're going to put that there. We're going to put that there, and then we're going to put that there. Alright. If then key space. This is just basic wall jumping. Here, let me grab this. Then set yvel to 5. If our xvel is greater than 0, then set it to -5. Now, we're also going to check before this if our y velocity is greater than, no, that's our x velocity. Our y velocity is greater than, and we have to be, well, we're going to call this when we're touching the level, if y velocity is greater than 0. So this will hopefully work as a wall jumping script. It doesn't. So it completely ruins the fact that we do it, and really, man, it's a way to sort of bounce up. It's a way to move up the walls. If touching level, if our y velocity is greater than, how to add wall jumping. See, this works as a wall jumping script. Which is why we're going to have to make a new block. We're gonna call this wall jump. And running this with, here, let me just show you what it does if it runs with screen refresh. Well, let's set that to 2 and -2. And if I edit this to run without screen refresh, it's pretty much the same. Then we're also going to change our YVL by 1. Yeah, this is pretty much our jumping, which is why we only can set it to 1. Whoa. And since that isn't doing almost anything, then really, we are going to do this. Then we're always checking that. You know what? Add wall jumping yourself. I've already made you guys a whole platformer. I'm not adding wall jumping. This has already been a 42-minute tutorial on making a basic platformer. I'm not adding any more. Not yet. But with this script, you can probably make a nice platformer, add in some levels, because I'm going to make a tutorial on how to do that too. Yeah. But one more thing. It only works with this platformer. Okay? If we're touching the edge. This won't work with almost any other platformer. If our Y position, which we can't use as a variable right now, is less than, if our Y position, oh no, dang it, I got it wrong. It's supposed to be dramatic. If our Y position is smaller than -200, well, if our Y position is smaller than -176, then we're going to just actually make a new receiver, call it spawn, and now it's always still running. When clicked, broadcast, spawn, forever, if then, broadcast, spawn. And now it will forever run no matter what. And now if we fall, we're just going to spawn again. And wow, I'm actually kind of proud of myself. I've never made a platforming script this good. Like that other one, that was like me doing my best. And then I don't even take a tutorial before I go back to the next one. And then I'm just like, alright guys, let's make a platformer. I originally thought it would be almost platformer base. Share. I thought it would almost be like exactly this. No collisions going upward. Just a trash platformer. Doesn't even work that well. But I mean, it took some work to make this. where you can just go around to places. Also, wow, I am actually proud of myself, though. I've never made a platformer that good without a tutorial. Alright, Eagle Mation out.